So what has it been like to travel during the pandemic? And have our budgets changed at all? That's all to come in this video. Hey guys, welcome to part 3 and the final episode in my series where I talk to my friends all around the world about how the pandemic has affected their daily lives. If you're new here, I'm Tiff. I'm an American living in Paris, here to help you navigate life abroad. If you're new to my channel, please make sure to subscribe. I share a lot of great info about life in Paris, life abroad, and the life lessons that I've learned, all of that fun stuff. So in the last 2 episodes, we've covered so much, from what our new normal is, if we've ever had a lockdown, how our mental health has been, the different rules and regulations that have been put in place in our cities and countries, and if people are actually following them. So if you've missed part 1 and 2, definitely make sure to check them out. And again, my friends are tuning in from
Tel Aviv, Israel,
St. Thomas, Virgin Islands,
Berlin, Germany,
Udaipur, Rajasthan in India,
and Playa del Carmen, Mexico,
Seattle, Washington,
Amsterdam, Netherlands,
London, United Kingdom,
New York.
So today we'll be chatting about whether or not we've traveled during the pandemic and what that experience has been, as well as whether or not our budgets have changed. So all of that's to come. We'll also be talking about the different weird things that we've noticed that have been going on because of the pandemic. So definitely more to come on that as well. And as always, I'll be asking questions not only to my friends, but to you guys as well. So drop your responses in the comments below. And then again, these interviews were filmed around August 21st. So if you're watching this in the future, definitely something to keep in mind. Things could have changed a bit since then. So now let's get into it. So the very first question I have for you is, have you traveled during the pandemic?
But no, I did not travel yet. First, I wasn't allowed to see my parents because they're not living in Berlin. So they're living like 2 hours away. So it was weird because in Germany, first during the lockdown, you weren't allowed to go from one area to another. You could move in the city, but you were not allowed to go to another area in Germany. So that was weird. That I was just legally not allowed to see my family. But then I did see them, so that was my first traveling, but it's so close.
I flew down to California, but I didn't fly down till May because I was just thinking, do I go? My parents are older. What made me eventually kind of pull the trigger to go was that the airlines changed their rules. So they prevented people from sitting in the middle. They instituted cleaning practices. The airports were pretty empty. You're required to wear a mask the entire time. Whereas in March and April, they didn't have that.
Nah, I've been in St. Thomas pretty much the whole pandemic.
And I went to Atlanta thinking that I was only going to be there for a few weeks. And then my flight was canceled. I couldn't even fly back to the country. There were no flights, nothing. Couldn't get on another flight, couldn't get back here. I was nervous if they were going to let residents back into the country at all. And they did, finally.
I haven't, and I wouldn't want to travel. So no, I'm not taking that risk, and that's because my dad is a diabetic, also a senior citizen, and that makes him a low immunity person. So I would not take that risk, no.
I just went to Prague for a few days, and I just took a Flixbus.
Okay.
And that was not socially distanced. I was seated next to someone.
Okay.
But then there wasn't anyone on the bus, so we just moved seats. But I think that was surprising because their website said oh, we're only doing one person per row. From Paris to London, just wore masks, but no, the seats were packed. I got to the airport, no one took my contact details. I also arrived at 10:30 p.m.
Okay.
So that might have been part of why.
So just came back from St. Thomas the weekend, Friday to Monday from St. Thomas. And going there, you go check in, TSA. JFK really didn't do anything. It was really business as usual. It was just a lot of the stores and restaurants weren't open. According to St. Thomas, we did have to obviously get tested and have test results that were submitted to us at least 72 hours prior to us leaving. When we were leaving from JFK, nobody checked them. It wasn't until we got to St. Thomas that they asked us to fill out papers. As soon as we got off the plane and before we walked in the terminal, they took our forehead test.
Only within Israel, so it was actually kind of great because it was a good opportunity to learn more about this country. So I went up to the Sea of Galilee, where the River Jordan is, went to the Dead Sea, but aside from that, not been on a plane, not gone anywhere.
And I did travel. I was doing a lot of U.S. travel, like Chicago and L.A. and Houston, and I was doing that. Leaving D.C. to come to Mexico, this was perfect. One, I can walk to the beach. After work, go to the beach. In the morning, I can go to the beach. I can just hang out on the beach. That elevates your spirits. It makes you feel better.
I recently went to Italy. Definitely a lot more, I would say, strict about entering stores with the mask on, where, making sure you sanitize your hands. They have some stores where they were checking people's temperature on site.
I always wondered, because I haven't gotten on a plane or anything since this. Do they test you? Do they temperature check you before you get on a flight? Even being on a flight, are there seats in between you?
I wore my mask, I had my gloves, I cleaned and sanitized everything near me. There were no one was sitting next to me. And on the flight back too, there was literally no one on flight. Everyone's required to wear a mask. Everyone's required to wear more of the surgical mask, and not just kind of the cloth mask that you can buy from the store. International flights for sure, I haven't had anyone to sit next to me. On the flights in Europe, only on my way to Italy, I had someone next to me. But for the most part, the flights have been relatively empty.
And it's crazy. I was actually planning a trip to India with two of my really good friends who are actually in this video right before COVID hit. So we were supposed to go in March. Obviously that didn't happen. And now at the time that I'm filming this video, I have not traveled yet. I honestly have not left Paris, but I am thinking of taking a trip somewhere in France, somewhere that's super safe. So let's see, more to come on that. But at the time that I'm filming right now, no, I have not yet traveled. So I personally can't provide any insight there, but it has been interesting to hear the stories from other people who have traveled and what their experience has been. So now with that said, where's the one place that you want to go to when all of this is over?
Good question. I think Venice.
Nigeria.
Japan.
Atlanta.
TJ Maxx.
Where'd you say, TJ Maxx?
Yes.
Colombia.
Anywhere.
So South Korea.
Buenos Aires.
So for me, it's of course India. I'm still dying to go. So I really hope that I can make this trip happen when things get back to normal. So now let's get into our finances. So has your budget changed at all as a result of the pandemic?
I'd say I'm definitely spending more on food just because I feel less guilty doing it, because I've been locked inside all day and I'm paying for anything else. Might as well treat myself to a little meal. I would say I've never been a big spender in the first place, but I'm definitely being a little bit more forgiving if I want to buy an extra avocado that week.
I definitely think my utility bills have increased. Just spending more time at home, so obviously consuming more. Spending more on food, where I would, normally drink coffee or whatever else at the office. I'm buying everything at home. So yeah, I definitely think budget-wise, I spend more.
Yeah, in some ways I'm saving a lot of money because I'm not going out partying every night or anything like that. But in other ways, I'm using more money because I don't really feel comfortable going to the gym. I have a private trainer, and because I don't want to go to the restaurants, I'm ordering in.
It took a month for me to get unemployment. But we had to file, period, especially in hospitality, and you're not working from home. They encouraged us to file for unemployment. To be honest, I actually, with the regular unemployment and the pandemic unemployment, I was actually making a couple hundred more than what I was making at my job.
That's a tough question because there never really is a budget, honestly.
Hashtag I'm a tourist.
Exactly.
It's more of online e-commerce based shopping now. That's where the money is going. Other than that, I don't really feel there's a huge difference. It's just the volume has gone up when it comes to different types of food because you're sitting at, you want variety. So it's just that. And yeah, other than that, definitely sanitization.
Yeah, it definitely has. Since earlier in the pandemic, student loans they gave us the forgiveness for a little while. That was cool. Same for credit cards and all that stuff. So I did have a little bit of extra money around.
Yeah, totally. I'm no longer paying for gas as much. I'm spending a lot more money on groceries though. I used to eat out a lot, but now just been cooking more. So it's been a nice change.
So for me, absolutely. I'm definitely spending more money on utilities because I'm just at home more. I'm also spending more on transportation. So now, and as I shared, and I think part 1 of the series, I really only take Ubers. I do not get on the metro because I do not feel comfortable yet. So I personally have been taking Ubers every time I leave the house, which is not sustainable and definitely puts a dent in your budget. And again, is why I kind of only go out once or twice a week because I don't want to spend too much on Ubers. So definitely spending more on Ubers, definitely spending more on food. I love to eat, so I've been ordering in, eating out sometimes, of course, cooking a lot more. So my food budget has definitely increased. And then also I've been thinking about going to like a socially distanced co-working space out here, which is around 25 euros a day. So I'm thinking of doing that maybe once a week just to kind of get out of my apartment. So that definitely will also be another cost to incur during all of this. So for me, yes, absolutely, my budget has changed. And now adding to this topic, what do you think is the one thing that you're spending the most money on right now?
Alcohol.
Masks.
Definitely skincare.
Groceries.
Believe it or not, food.
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 So for me, it's definitely food. Y'all know I love to eat, so I go to brunch when I can, I order in when I can. I've been cooking so much, as I shared before. So for me, it's absolutely food. And now moving into kind of like a fun question. Have you noticed anything weird or bizarre that's been happening as a result of the pandemic? You know, I've heard so many stories. Of course, in the States, toilet paper was a huge concern and no one could find toilet paper. So for you, what have been like the weird or bizarre things that have happened as a result of the pandemic?
For me personally, I think the thing that was most bizarre was having cops outside my house for 14 days straight because the neighborhood had a case and it was like a curfew, and it's like one step ahead of the lockdown where you're literally not even going out for grocery shopping or not even to walk your dog. So you are under a house arrest basically in a designated area, and you're being watched over by cops 24/7 for the period of 14 days or until the patient comes back home.
I feel like there's more awkward interactions than usual with servers or waiters at restaurants because they're wearing the face shield and they're wearing the mask. Talking to waiters can always be kind of awkward because you have like the polite interaction in the beginning and then all these other things. You can't hear each other.
Right.
And then kind of just going back and forth and then being like, what? Like,
Bizarre, I would say just not going to the gym, just not socializing as much as usual. The not going to the gym has been like, also, I mean, I've gained like some serious weight thanks to quarantine. When I got back to Amsterdam, decided like, oh, I'm gonna put on something real, like a pair of jeans. Psych, none of them fit. Not one pair.
You know, everyone's wearing masks now, and I think on top of that, people kind of have their blinders. Like they're just going to the store, they're on a mission. So I kind of miss, you know, seeing smiles, you know, seeing people kind of making eye contact, where now it's just a different vibe when going out.
I think the apartment hunt was different for me, where, you know, a lot of realtors were only doing virtual at first. And then after that, as you know, here in New York, realtors, they'll stay on your ass. It's like, oh, you didn't like that one? Cool, I've got another one. A lot of realtors, they don't keep up with you, like, if you don't like one. It's like, oh, you didn't like that one? Oh, okay, on to the next person. A lot of landlords were still keeping up with the income requirements, even though a lot of us were on unemployment.
The funny, weird thing is more like a little sad that always, when I then could meet my friends in person for the first time, that I always wasn't sure if they like want to hug or not. So I would always ask, like, do you want to have a hug, or do you still feel like not really comfortable with that?
The BVI has actually been really strict with their borders. They actually arrested this fisherman. And
Really?
I think he's still over there. Yeah, they arrested him because he came in during the pandemic. He was a fisherman from New Jersey that normally fishes in Puerto Rico or something like that. And he came in and they hold him up.
We actually had a shortage of eggs. We had a big shortage of eggs. They were like gold. No one could find eggs for like 2 weeks. It wasn't toilet paper for us. It was never toilet paper. We always had that.
Great, I can get Lysol here. I can get Lysol in the States. I can get antibacterial wipes here. I can get bleach. Everything I can't get in the States, I can get here. So I feel like I can protect myself against the virus. What's also bizarre is I'm hearing some crazy stories about people who had COVID or knew that they had it, but they were still being social. Someone said that he had COVID, but he said the doctor told him that he could go out this weekend. But he said, I feel just fine. You know, blah, blah, blah. The doctor said I can go out. And I'm like, I
was just in Dwayne Reed. You can't get any Lysol wipes or spray to save your life unless you know somebody that like works in the medical field or works at a Dwayne Reed. It's to the point where you have to improvise. Like Mr. Clean has this Clean Freak misting spray cleanser now. I just use that with some paper towels. You literally have to improvise. I went on the trip to St. Thomas this weekend. I think the only reason one of the girls had it is because I think her mom works at a store. People who work at the stores, they're stocking up for their families. So it's like, oh, okay, well, where does that leave the rest of us?
So for me, I would have to say the weirdest thing was having to lug a suitcase to the grocery store and then lug it up my 5th floor walk up. So in Paris, people do food shopping a lot differently than they do in the United States. So, you know, in the States, you might buy food for a week or 2 weeks and kind of buy in bulk. Here in Paris, it's kind of like you're only buying food for the night that you're cooking or maybe 2 or 3 nights out. It's not really common to buy a bunch of food in bulk like they do in the United States. So when we were going into the lockdown, I was like, oh my God, we need to stock up for like 2 weeks at a time. So we would literally bring my suitcase, like a big travel suitcase, to the grocery store, pack it up with 2 weeks worth of food and lug it up my 5th floor walk up. And I just remember being like, what is life right now? Like, this is insane. And then I think another thing that's been weird for me is the fact that I haven't taken the metro since February, since before all of this started, which is insane. And I know for me, you know, that's a personal choice. I just don't really like being around too many people during this time. And just with the metro being a closed space, you know, again, as I shared in another video, during rush hour, the metros can be really crowded. So haven't yet really wanted to risk it. And now that cases are rising, I'm kind of like, not sure if I'm going to be taking the metro for a while. So I think that those would be the two kind of weird things for me. So guys, that wraps up part 3 and the final episode in this series. I really hope that you enjoyed it. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And a huge thank you to my friends from all around the world who were willing to participate in this. It's been awesome to hear your perspective on what's going on in your city or country. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next week.